Look, Tony Gosselin, we're looking now at the second time that this has happened. First Theresa May and then now Boris Johnson. Um, but really, the popular vote is not was not behind Theresa May, and neither will it be if it were to be Boris Johnson. What about the notion of democracy here?
Well, listen, this is not a general election, is it? This is the Tory party deciding who they want to carry things forward. But I'd just like to point out about Boris is the reason that many people are going for him within the Conservative MPs, the parliamentary party, is because he's already won an election. He won that election as the mayor of London for the Tory party, and he stood as carried on as mayor. Some would say quite successfully. Certainly his PR was quite successful. The only thing is he won that election as a relative unknown. So, this is a decade or so ago, and now many people know much more about Boris Johnson. And so it's not necessarily going to be an easy thing for him to win a general election. And I think this is what the Tory party, as most parties do, is they pick someone they think is a winner at an election, and that's why I think they're going for him. But look, I mean, it was never going to be easy, this Brexit business. This is another stage towards actually carrying out what the British people called for back in 2016 in this referendum, which seems to be such a painful process. There's so many vested interests that want to keep us in a trade bloc, effectively a United States of Europe, now becoming a political and military union. And actually, it's not surprising that there's been so much trouble over Brexit, because Brexit sends a signal out to the whole of the rest of the 800 million or so Europeans, a potential stake in the heart of the European Union. And so that's why there's so much time and effort being spent by many of the people who've done so well out of the EU in trying to stop it here in the UK. So yes, definitely Boris number one. I mean, I think the most interesting people at the moment in the running right now, today in this vote, are the two losers last time. So Sajid Javid, I mean, he's really a kind of seen anyway as a weak and pliable Home Secretary. His sorts of policies he's brought in have been very unpopular. And for example, he's just signed the arrest warrant, the extradition warrant for Julian Assange with even a question, even though Assange really hasn't committed any crimes under English law apart from possibly breaking bail or contempt of court, possibly, but nothing really serious in order to extradite one of the world's most important journalists. So I don't think Sajid Javid is going to have any kind of real popularity in this, because he's one of those people that just does what he's told, and he doesn't have a lot of political sense. The other interesting one, who was one of the two lowest votes in the last round last week, is Rory Stewart. He's much more interesting. He's a former Bilderberg attendee. He's also been outed by Craig Murray, the former ambassador to Uzbekistan, as working for MI6 when he was over in Afghanistan. He's a former military guy. But look, the trouble with Rory Stewart is he's now denied ever working for MI6. So there seems to be a massive contradiction right at the heart of his campaign. And he's one of the people who's actually campaigning to remain in the EU, which I don't think is going to curry much favour with the Tory voters.
And Roshan Mohammed Saleh, before I let you go, what is the general feel you're getting from people in terms of who they perhaps stand behind, since obviously they want to get out of this quagmire that Brexit has caused?
I mean, I think people on the street are just spectators. As you said, this is a kind of coronation in the Conservative Party, and the 300 plus Conservative Party MPs and the 160,000 plus Conservative Party members, but the wider public doesn't get to decide who the next Prime Minister will be. A bit like a few years ago when Theresa May was appointed Prime Minister before going on to do rather badly in a general election. So I think the public are just seeing this as a small elite bunch of white men, ultimately, standing as candidates, and a very small coterie of Conservative MPs and supporters electing who will be the next Prime Minister. But as I said before, I think from Jeremy Corbyn's point of view, I would have said a few weeks ago that he would be odds on to win the next general election. That's what the polls indicate. There is a desire for change in this country. The Conservatives have been in power for 9 years now. Usually the average electoral cycle of one party is around 10 years in power. So this country is ripe for change. But I think from Jeremy Corbyn's point of view, the candidate that he would least likely want to face in that general election would be Boris Johnson, simply because he's a good campaigner, the public like him. Also, scandal doesn't seem to stick to him. He's been proven to be a womanizer, he's proven to be a liar, he's proven to be a racist and Islamophobe. He's done outrageous things, yet he has this kind of bumbling Etonian kind of facade, and people tend to like him, and all the scandal doesn't seem to stick to him. And therefore, he is someone who would certainly pose a major threat to Jeremy Corbyn at the next general election.
Thank you very much for that, Rusham Mohammed Saleh from London, and also Tony Gosling, thank you, investigative journalist there, talking to us from Bristol. And that does it for the News Review.